Hey guys, what's going on? Thank you so much for watching today. My name is Savannah. If you're new here, thanks so much for stopping by. I always do appreciate it. We are building a black and white ruffed lemur habitat today, and that is because yesterday or 2 days ago from when you're watching this video was Planet Zoo's 2-year anniversary. I cannot believe it's been 2 years already. But for that anniversary, they announced some pretty special things for us, including this new animal. So if you have Planet Zoo base game and you have the update, which is free for everyone, you can download that or let your game update, and you will have the black and white ruffed lemur. So now we have 3 lemur species in the game. We have the ring-tailed lemur, the red ruffed lemur, and now the black and white ruffed lemur. So if you're a lemur fan, you can now create habitats for all 3 of them. And I'm assuming, I didn't actually double check, but I'm assuming all 3 of them can live together because the other 2 species could already live together in game. So I was hit with a random wave of inspiration after seeing the adorable little face on these guys. They are so incredibly cute with their black and white coloring. I don't know what it is because they basically are just a reskin of the other 2 lemurs, right? They just look kind of the same, but they have different colors. I think they look like their faces are just so cute with their little like white beard and stuff. I think they're absolutely adorable. So as I was saying, I was hit with a random wave of inspiration and decided to sit down yesterday, 2 days ago from when you're hearing this voiceover here, this video, and build a habitat. And I honestly just sat down, and this habitat is one of the quickest ones I've ever built. It took me about 2 hours, and I just built it all the way through. I sat down, I put on some content on the TV and was watching some Planet Zoo videos and also Jurassic World Evolution 2 videos, because all those came out on YouTube a couple days ago, and just built this all the way through. I was, of course, as always, working off of a reference picture. The reference picture, though, I really did use just as inspiration / reference on this one. I really didn't copy exactly a whole lot, just some certain details. So like this right here was the main thing I took from the inspiration video, and this is going to be like our walk under, walk behind waterfall for the habitat. So just creating a little bit of a custom fence here. I absolutely love using those mesh pieces, how I've used them here, and duplicating them over and making the squares a little bit tinier. I think it looks really realistic, and it's such a nice little detail. It looks like a really well done fence, if I do say so myself, and I'm really happy with how it came out. But basically this is just the railing holding guests back, and the waterfall is going to come over the top of them, and they're going to get to see the 8th wonder of the world, the backside of water. If you guys are Disney fans, you'll know exactly where that comes from. But wanted to add that in there because I thought it was a nice little detail. I really don't play with the VFX all that much, so I thought it might be nice to just kind of add that in there. Other than that, the other inspiration part that I took from this photo that I was looking at was the climbing structure and the little island aspect of the habitat. If you'll notice from the thumbnail or the little intro video that you watch, this habitat is separated from the guests via water because the lemurs can't swim. So it is not meant to be like super deep water, just deep enough water that they're not going to be able to try to swim through it, that separates them from the guests. Now, because of that, I was able to make it nice and open, and the view is really not obstructed from where the guests are standing. From where the guests are standing, all that they have in their way is just that concrete border wall. I ended up raising it up just a little bit because when I put the keeper next to it, it was a little bit short, but basically that's all that separates them from the lemurs. And then of course the water keeps the lemurs from going over to the concrete wall and kind of jumping out and escaping. But this little island is actually usable by them. So I end up making this climbing structure that is very reminiscent of the inspiration photos that I'm looking at. And they can use it, they can climb over it. I was actually fairly impressed with how much they could use it and get onto this island. I did put a couple enrichment items out there onto the island to kind of encourage them. They really seemed to be more preoccupied with other things in their habitat, and of course didn't go exactly where I wanted them to go. But if you check their traversable area, they could actually make their way all the way out there. So that was kind of the idea about that. The climbing structure I am pretty proud of, and I was going to try to put it on I was going to try to put it on the workshop, which I still might. It's a matter of remembering to do it. I always close out of the game and then completely forget to put things on the workshop, and it's all one item and everything. It's ready to go. So I will write myself a little note, and I will try to remember to get that up there for you guys. It's a fairly simple climbing structure. I'm just kind of fairly proud of it because it turned out really well. I think it's kind of a modernish looking climbing structure. Definitely looks very man-made and not like a naturalistic climbing structure like a lot of people have been making. So I was really proud of it. And then here, just making some rock wall to surround the entire habitat. That was again in the reference picture. The whole habitat was kind of just surrounded by this fake wall facade area. I'm pretty sure that the reference picture that I was looking at was actually a walkthrough habitat, I think. I forget where it was from, but I think it was a walkthrough habitat. I decided not to make this one a walkthrough habitat just because I didn't want to deal with the walkthrough barrier entrances or the walkthrough entrances or anything like that. But I did make this little area over here where you could kind of get like a closer look if you wanted to. So you go over to that little circle, and there's some benches over there, and just kind of a closer look at the lemurs themselves. I ended up making a very quick kind of fencing with like a little overhang to make it look like, I'm going to start on it now here, make it look like the lemurs couldn't climb out. Maybe thinking that there would be hot wire on top because obviously they could very easily climb the chain link, but maybe the top of it, or the mesh rather, the metal, whatever that part is, very easily could climb it, but maybe the top would be hot wire so that they couldn't. One thing I am missing in Planet Zoo right now, and I've found myself wanting it more and more as I get into these like detailed builds, is a really thin wire. We have that kind of African one with the beads on it, but it's sloped, it's curved, and I really want just a straight wire, because then we could do kind of hot wire around the top. Like a lot of primate enclosures will have like the hot wire that kind of sticks out from the side of the rocks horizontally, that makes it look like the primates can't actually climb out of their habitat, and I'm definitely missing that. But this will do for now. Obviously a little bit of make-believe never hurt anyone in video games, so that's just what you're gonna have to use with this one. Now, as we continue with the habitat, we're going to do lots more rock work and then get started on the climbing structures. I think the next thing that I build. I want to go ahead and talk about our little lemur friends. Of course, as always, I've got some information pulled up here. This one is from the Smithsonian, the National Zoo. So we'll talk about them right now. So they are critically endangered, which is pretty sad. So they are kind of threatened out in the wild, struggling in their natural habitat. Their physical description. So as their name suggests, black and white ruffed lemurs have black and white bodies. Not all individuals have the same black and white markings, but their hands, feet, tails, faces, and heads are typically always black, with a distinctive white ruff around their necks. In some individuals, patches of white can appear yellowish. These lemurs also have bright yellow eyes. As far as size goes, black and white ruffed lemurs can reach 20 to 22 inches, that's 50 to 55 centimeters, in body length, and an additional 24 to 26 inches in tail length. Adults weigh between 6.6 and 10 pounds, or 3 and 4.5 kilograms. In their native habitat, so like all lemur species, black and white ruffed lemurs can only be found in Madagascar. They have a patchy distribution in eastern Madagascar with 3 subspecies identified along the range. Madagascar is a really interesting place. It's definitely on my bucket list. I would love to go visit and see, because it's an island, right? So you get a lot of evolution and stuff goes its own way on islands, because you have these isolated populations of animals that evolve completely separate from animals that are still on the mainland and stuff like that. So that's really cool. But yeah, so like all lemur species, black and white ruffed lemurs are from Madagascar. Communication. As is common with lemur species, black and white ruffed lemurs have an array of vocalizations they use to communicate. When alarmed, they produce a deep barking call, and when defending their territory, they emit a wailing howl. I didn't actually pay attention to their vocalizations in game, so I'm wondering if they have the same as the other lemurs or if there's some new ones. I haven't actually quite paid attention yet. Last but not least, let's talk about their food and eating habits. So as a primary arboreal species, they often walk, run, and leap from branch to branch. And it says that they're, sometimes quadrupedal, which means that they walk on 4 feet, but they can also kind of jump and walk around on 2 feet sometimes too. Like not walk around, but like hop and jump around. Because ruffed lemurs are especially frugivorous. They eat fruits, basically. I mispronounced that word, so I apologize. But they eat fruits. They are also adept at suspending from their feet to help reach ripe fruit hanging from the trees and branches. This is known as suspensory movement and is exhibited in this species more so than other lemur species. Social structure consists of small family groups, typically between 2 and 5 individuals. Black and white ruffed lemurs have been observed in larger groups of up to 16 individuals, but those large groups are typically comprised of several smaller groups. Very, very cool. So that's a little bit about our lemur friends. As always, I'm going to say this again because I say it every time. I find them completely fascinating. I absolutely love animals and I love learning about them. So hopefully you guys learned a couple quick things too. They have one fun fact listed on here. And it says they have a unique ability among pollinators to open the traveler tree's flowers. While the lemurs benefit by eating the nectar within the flowers, the trees benefit from the pollination that occurs when the pollen sticks to the lemurs' faces and is transported to the next tree. So very cool. Lemurs, these guys are considered pollinators as well and help in their environment. Very, very cool. Back to our build and what we're doing. So it looks like I have finished creating the climbing structure. Wow, I did that rather quickly. I didn't think we talked about the lemurs for that long, but the climbing structure is complete and I am fairly pleased at the fact that they do actually use that little bridge. I saw the lemurs both running across the ropes that are on either side of that bridge, but also just kind of sitting on the wooden planks, which I thought was pretty cool. So it did end up being kind of a usable little thing for them, which is a lot to ask for some animals to actually use the climbing structures that you make and use them appropriately. But these lemurs did a really good job at that. You can see I copied the fencing that was over that little circular area over to here to give just another little viewing area. And what I end up doing when I go to include the enrichment and stuff like that for them is I do a little foraging, like octagon, whatever it is, little foraging pit over here by that secondary fence area where we just were, so that guests can get a nice up close look at them foraging in their little foraging thing. Do some rocks around it, make it integrated into the ground, kind of like we normally have done in the past. And then just very simple, using these fences that came in a previous update along with the mesh and everything, just kind of double fencing everything to make sure people aren't going to be sticking their fingers through. We don't want the lemurs to accidentally mistake guests' fingers as little carrots or pieces of food or anything like that and bite somebody's thumb off, because that would be not so great. So double fencing keeps people away. And then I'm working on the waterfall area here, and I did leave it all in because at first I tried to make it look like with the VFX that the water was flowing over, but I couldn't get it quite right, and these rocks are pretty thin, and it kept clipping through the bottom of it. So like when you were under there, it looked like you were walking through basically another waterfall, like the guests were gonna get a shower as they were walking through here, and that was not okay in my opinion because it bothered me quite a bit with my OCD. I really didn't want it clipping through. So I end up just doing the front water feature so that it looks like it's flowing over, and then just kind of duplicating those rocks and covering it so that it's implied like that would be where the water pumps are. Obviously, there would be something taking the water from this pool, pumping it up and out through the waterfall, is how this would work. So it ends up just being the front piece. You saw me kind of trying to use those jets because in the reference picture that I'm looking at, it had little streams of water, not like one big waterfall. So I was trying that, but they ended up looking, it didn't look quite right for what I was doing here. So I ended up using just one waterfall effect on the front, and that way you can still kind of see the fence behind it. I was gonna have the waterfall go all the way across, but then it just looks like a waterfall, and from the front of it you couldn't really tell that guests could get behind there. So here's where I'm changing my mind, deleting everything and trying to get rid of all of those teeny tiny little VFX thingies, and just kind of going over the top of it with rocks and making it look like there is obviously like some sort of pump or something back there, and the water's coming out of this little itty bitty slit that's right here. I'm happy with it. I think it turned out really well, but you know, I wish I could have made it work the other way. Maybe Estan could have done a little better, waterfall expert that he is, but I think it turns out great nonetheless. So then from here on out, we really are just moving on to some decorative foliage, throwing down a couple little education boards, doing some terrain painting because I absolutely love the tropical map comes with like this bark stuff all over the ground. So just kind of painting around where I think that would be. And then again, adding some just decorative foliage out into the guest area, some benches, stuff like that. I don't end up letting the guests over here. I end up kind of finishing this one up rather quickly. So all the end cinematics and stuff like that don't actually have the guests walking around. Like you can see there, I was pulling over a keeper to make sure that this is all correct height and everything looks good scaling wise. And yeah, so that's really kind of it for the build. I hope you guys did enjoy. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry if you heard that scraping. If you've been kind of following me on Twitter or on my Discord, you'll know that one of my dogs, Nalu, my little husky mix, she actually cut up her leg and she has 7 staples in it, and she has a giant cone on her head. So that was her next to me, and if you guys can't hear it, I'm just telling you the story anyway, but she stood up and she went to turn around, but her cone scraped against the wall as she turned because she has no idea that it sticks out so far from her head. Poor little thing. She's been such a good sport and she's doing really well, so thank you guys. A lot of you guys have asked how she's been doing, and she's been doing great. She's a really good sport. Her leg is healing really well. She's got to have the staples in for 8 to 12 days or so, and then I'll pull them out probably like Monday of next week or something like that. And she should be good to go. Her biggest gripe right now is that she's really not allowed to go on runs with me so that she doesn't open up her wound or pop any of her staples out or anything like that. I've got to keep her fairly mellow. And for a 1-year-old husky mix, staying mellow is extraordinarily difficult. She is not a fan. But she'll survive, and you know, after that maybe we'll take her, you know, to an extra long beach trip or something like that so she can run out all her energy, but she's just gonna drive me crazy for the next week. Anyway, sorry about that. Back to the build. We are pulling from the rhino habitat, and I just needed something kind of implied, so I really don't do any more detailing on this building. I just kind of put it back there like it's an implied backstage area. I just felt like the back of the habitat looked too plain without it, and it just kind of looked empty, so I needed to fill that up. Same reason I put those trees that are not inside the lemur habitat, but they're outside, just so that we have a nice little backdrop. You guys have heard me talk about that before, making sure that my enclosures have a nice little backdrop to make them look nice and pretty. I did kind of struggle with this one a little bit in the sense of putting trees in the habitat. I tried to pay really close attention that any of the trees that I put in were not going to be extraordinarily close to the rock wall, not because the lemurs in game could climb them. Well, I was afraid they could, but in real life, I wouldn't want the lemurs to climb up and then jump right out and over, right? So I tried to place the trees kind of away from the rock walls so that they wouldn't be able to do that. As we're finishing up here, this is basically the last thing that I'm doing, is kind of integrating this little forage thing over here on this side. Thank you guys so much for watching. The support on the channel in the month of October was absolutely phenomenal. We got 942, I think, new subscribers just in the month of October, and that's absolutely phenomenal. So with that being said, if you guys are enjoying, a subscribe really, really is appreciated. Leaving a like down on the video lets me know that you guys are enjoying the content, and a comment will let me know what you guys thought and what you guys want to see next. So all of which is appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed. There's some end cinematics for you right after we get done placing all of this education, and I'll leave you with that. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!